The journey began long ago, before any of us. It was a crazy idea going off the well-worn path of human history. It required a revolution. Although the Revolutionary War lasted for 8 years, starting with the Battle of Lexington and Concord in 1775 and ending with the Treaty of Paris in 1783, we mark the birth of our nation as we did a couple days ago with the Declaration made July 4th, 1776. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all people are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, of course, I've changed the words because we've changed. All people, we have evolved our understanding. It has been 249 years, after all. Our country's founders, like us, were imperfect human beings. They suffered from a myopia reflective of the times in which they lived. The grand experiment that started with a revolution became one of evolution, of change, of knowing that we don't have it right yet, of living with the mystery of trying to advance the project as best we can in spite of this. Once our independence was secured, those adventurers drew up the documents that would guide their onward journey. They prefaced it with words of inspiration so that they and those who would follow would remember why they were taking this journey, embarking on this grand experiment in democracy. This bold, audacious experiment was at the same time soaringly idealistic and deeply flawed. They wrote, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." Generations of school children have memorized those words. The preamble of one of the sacred texts of American civil religion. The U.S. Constitution was adopted in 1787, ratified nearly a year later in 1788. It created our government and for generations continued to define powers and protect rights. Because while the preamble, the main document itself is the stuff of constitutional scholars, and I do want to apologize in advance to any such scholars in the room. Because while the preamble does not have technical legal standing, I would claim it is our North Star. It is our why. And we need that guiding star. We need that why now more than ever. It can help us know when we've wandered off onto ill-advised paths that may tempt us along the way. It can help us recognize when the adventure has become misadventure. And it can keep us moving when we get discouraged. Our North Star can call us to our best selves in much the same way as our religious tradition and our congregations can. Not surprisingly, Unitarian Universalists and other religious liberals often understand the aspirations of America as having a religious-like quality. Both sides of our tradition, in the forms we know them today, significantly evolved around the time of the American Revolution. Both Unitarianism and Universalism grew up alongside America and were influenced by many of the same trends. All were birthed in the world of emerging ideas around democracy, ideas around liberty and justice and common good, ideas many of us have come to consider fundamental, but which were at one time considered radical. And sadly, alarmingly, are coming to be considered radical once again. At this crossroad in our adventure, we are becoming increasingly aware of the shortcomings of our founders and the path they laid out. We recognize their limited thinking, for example, around equality of race, gender, and economic status. We notice that the guardrails that we thought would keep us safe are not as sturdy as we imagined. We have taken some forks in the road that do not serve us. As president of the League of Women Voters of Orange County, I recently attended the annual council for the National League of Women Voters. It was a weekend of considering deeply what it means that back in April, the League declared a constitutional crisis. 3 months ago, their declaration included the statement, the foundational principles that have sustained our democracy, checks and balances, the rule of law, free and fair elections, are under direct and sustained threat. The League of Women Voters, some of you may know, was founded by the suffragettes in 1920, just as women were getting the right to vote. It has the radical mission to empower voters and defend democracy. Recognizing our desire for a pluralistic, multiracial democracy, attendees at the council spent a full day in racial equity training. You know, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. Because we know that the world we dream about will not be creating itself. So here we are. As a nation stumbling down a road we did not intend and which looks increasingly treacherous. Rather than stay on a path that does not suit us, we are called to raise our gaze to our guiding stars and redraw the map. Fortunately, the itinerary that we inherited allows for change. The United States Constitution has how many amendments? 27, good. One of which undid a previous one. Talk about a detour, right? Imperfect humans like us, our founders left us not a perfect system, but a way to continue the perfecting process. The preamble tells us the why of the Constitution is to create a more perfect union. We've heard it so many times that we might not even think about it. More perfect? Isn't perfect? Well, perfect? Yes. But there's always more. More perfect then and now, still room to grow and to improve. And so we are called to equip ourselves for the next phase of the adventure. The week before the League Council, I attended the General Assembly, the annual gathering of Unitarian Universalists this year in Baltimore. I did conferences all of June. They were all in the same area. The theme for General Assembly this year was Meet the Moment. There were many opportunities to consider what these times ask of us and to learn skills and tools that will be needed. One of the speakers was Deepa Iyer, a South Asian American writer and advocate for justice. She is, you may be interested to know, the author of the 2025-2026 UU Common Read. Her book is Social Change Now, a guide for reflection and connection. It's published by Skinner House, one of our UU publishing houses. Based on her experience of community organizing, the book lays out a social change ecosystem framework and includes opportunities for pause and reflection. I picked up a copy of the book. I haven't had a chance to read it, but it looks really interesting, and I encourage you to consider having it as a common read here. I also picked up her children's book, because, you know, children's books summarize everything so nicely for us. Its title is We Are the Builders, and I recommend it for those of you with children in your lives, but also for all of us. It lays out in simple terms the many different roles that people can play when it comes to social change. She lists 10, but I could think of a few more, and I imagine you can too. I'll share her list in just a minute. But I find recently that because I'm a minister, I'm the co-president of the league, people think I know things, and they say, what should I be doing? And I think, you're asking me. But then I say, here's what I say. We need all the things, all the things. So do the thing that you can do with joy and enthusiasm. Because this is a marathon, not a sprint. The thing you can do with joy and enthusiasm is the thing you will be able to do for the long haul. It is the thing that will not only be useful, but also sustainable, because it will enhance your life and liberty and your pursuit of happiness. While we know that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, in a marathon, pacing matters. And so I would suggest that good life, right, the mythical good life that we all seek now and always will be a combination, must be a combination of enjoying life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and intertwining that with our joyful and enthusiastic vigilance. So what should you do? That's for you to decide. Let me name some of the possibilities that Deepa Iyer mentions. See if any of them capture your imagination. At times like this, we often think of the disruptors, those willing to risk and challenge the status quo. And sometimes we think of the frontline responders who organize people and communications and resources. Other times we might be noticing the builders who bring ideas to life. We don't want to forget about the weavers who look for and create connections between people and places and organizations and ideas and movements. We also need experimenters, people who can innovate and are willing to try new things. And of course, we need visionaries. We need people who can imagine and articulate the direction of our North Star. Then there are the gifts of the caretakers who nurture communities of care and joy and connection like this one. And there are the healers who understand the pain of the world, often generationally inherited, and they tend to the trauma that comes with it. And let's not underestimate the role of the storytellers who lift up our community stories and cultures and experiences through art and music and media and movement. And the last role that Iyer mentions is the guides who teach and counsel and advise with discernment and wisdom. These are just the bumper sticker versions of what each of these roles could be. You are the person who knows or can discover where your joy and enthusiasm lies. But we need everyone, and there's something for everyone. The world has changed, and the challenges have shifted, but I do not think that the why has changed. I believe that the preamble still holds. I believe it's worthy of our reflection. Listen to the words once again. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. I'd like to shift into a time of meditation on these aspirations that call out in our vision of a more perfect union. As we work our way slowly through these well-worn phrases, I invite you to consider, what do these words mean to you? Does this differ in any way from what you think the authors might have meant? How did it speak to the challenges we have in our nation and our world today? How might it be supported by some of the roles that we just heard from Iyer? have meaning in our smaller groups as well, our congregations, our families, other groups to which we might belong. So let's begin with the first aspiration, to establish justice. What does that mean to you? Establish justice. How has it evolved? Not just in our nation, but in your mind. While our founders may have established clear ways to enact justice according to the prevailing views of their day, they did not have the vision to expand it to include all people, women, enslaved peoples, all classes. That has been and remains a long, slow evolution. As we continue our journey, how are we called to establish justice? And what are you personally called to? And how does this interact with our next aspiration? Ensure domestic tranquility. What does that mean to you, domestic tranquility? How has it evolved, not just in our nation, but in your mind? It has been suggested that the founders may have been referencing their hope to keep the peace between the newly united states. Yet there's certainly lots of room to consider more broadly what it means to have peace. It has become clear that true peace is impossible without true justice. Are we, who often prefer to avoid conflict, willing to live with the discomfort of hearing about and truly understanding where attempts to establish justice have fallen short? As we continue our journey, how are we called to ensure domestic tranquility? And what are you personally called to do? Our next aspiration is to provide for the common defense. What does that mean to you? How has it evolved in our nation and in your mind? The world is a vastly different place now than it was in 1788. Communication and technology, as well as a growing human population and a changing geopolitical landscape, are things that few could have begun to imagine. Our world seems both larger and smaller at the same time. What does it mean? What does it mean to provide for the common defense in an uber-connected world? As we continue our journey, how are we called to provide for the common defense? And what are you personally called to do? And then there's our next aspiration, to promote the general welfare. What does that mean to you? How has it evolved in our nation and in your mind? Are there ways in which our desire to promote the general welfare, the common good, is sometimes in tension with the attitude of defense? How do we care for an expanding and diverse population with finite resources? How do we work out the tensions that arise? As we continue our journey, how are we called to promote the general welfare? And what are you personally called to do? The final aspiration is to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. What does that mean to you? And how has it evolved in our nation and in your mind? Like justice, our founders' view on liberty were myopic. They have expanded. History has rarely looked kindly on attempts to shrink circles of liberty. Instead, we celebrate anniversaries of times when freedom was expanded. Over 2.5 centuries, more people can vote, more people can marry, more people can make their own choices about their lives and their bodies. And yet, today we find some among us who would like to reverse this trend. And so it seems there is more perfecting to do. As we continue our journey, how are we called to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity? And what are you personally called to do? We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. The founders were describing their why, the reason that they set out on this perilous journey that we now continue. The values and vision that they articulated in the preamble to the United States Constitution can still speak to us today, as individuals, as organizations, as a nation, and perhaps even the world. They can speak to us and they can challenge us to continue the perfecting process. Have you ever noticed that when something particularly egregious happens, sometimes people say, "We're better than this." And then sometimes someone says, "Are we?" Clearly, as a nation, we are still capable of making some choices that are not in keeping with our highest values. It may not be accurate to say we are better than this. But I do so believe that we must make the choice to say we can become better than this, and then commit to do the work to make it so. Our aspirations are beautiful. They can guide us as a North Star, even though we will never reach perfect. Our journey is not finished, and there is no shame. There is no shame in admitting that we are not done. The question given to us is, how will we be better? How can we continue the perfecting process, the audacious journey begun so many years ago? Still and always in process. Still and always requiring something of we the people. Still and always counting on us. Our closing song is "This Is My Song," number 159. Please rise.